Hello, thanks for joining us. Good evening. Yes, it's actually evening now, so I get to say that first for you. My name is Lambert. I'm a group product manager on the Copilot Studio engineering team, but I also sponsor our financial services clients around the world and meet many of them as they come through Redmond to have discussions with us around their agentic journeys. So we're here today to talk about accelerating agentic journeys in financial services. So we're talking largely to partners here. I've got a number of things on the agenda for you today. First, we're going to talk a bit about how Microsoft sees agentic journeys going through this. I'm sure you've heard a little bit of this in almost every session you've talked about today. We're going to give you a little bit of a financial services flair to that. Hemanth is going to come and join me and talk a bit about that. We also have Adam from Morningstar here who's going to talk about their journey and some of the learnings that they've had along the way. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into it. So I looked through a bunch of different slides as people were making things and getting all of their content ready for this week. And I was trying to figure out, like, how do I say but not say the exact same thing that every other speaker is saying? And this was the one stat that stood out to me. It's that effectively AI is starting to become intelligence on tap. It's starting to give us the ability to have this IQ of whatever profession that we wanted to have. And in many cases, that applies to financial services as well, where people with PhDs in their respective areas are being beat out by models that are coming on the market today. And so the question that we have is, how do we take that intelligence, that thing that exists in AI, and how do we bottle that up and use that to impact our businesses in some way, shape, or form? And as CIOs and executives from various financial firms come through Redmond and talk with us, largely they're telling us that they see this direction, they see the future, they see that, oh my God, the way we're working is going to change dramatically as it heads into the future. And as they think about bottling that up, they're thinking about agents. They're thinking about not just what's this assistant that I use every day, but what are the agents I need to build for key jobs within my organization, whether that's helping in customer service or claims processing or financial analysts. There's a bunch of different ways they're heading. And they're trying to figure out, how do I do that? Now, we've also been thinking about this as a platform company and as a company that works on productivity. And our view of this is it's effectively what's on the screen here, right? So we're going to take the human, the person who has this idea, this intent of a thing they're trying to get done. We're going to take an orchestrator, which in our world is Copilot. That's this colorful thing here in the middle, plus a series of agents, and that's how we're going to get work done. And I think about this in contrast to how we get work done today, which is largely a person plus Windows plus their applications. And you spend your whole day going and clicking around all of these different apps, and you're trying to figure out, get an email from my boss, how can I go and look that up in some application, and then some line of business app, and then I pay for some data from a partner, and I make a slide, and then I convince somebody, and you're just constantly bouncing around your PC. And I think that's ripe for change, to say, how instead can a person go and work with an orchestrator, in this case Copilot, and have all of these agents help bring that intelligence and those insights directly to them. And so I think that Copilot has this capability of doing that because it can bring together all of your work context. So it has this work IQ that they talked about this morning, this ability to know all of the emails you've ever written, all of the documents you've looked at, even your job title can go a long way. If you try something as simple as just like go and ask Copilot, tell me about Home Depot, and it'll give you back a generic response. But if you say something like, I'm an investment banker, tell me about Home Depot, you'll get a very different response that is much more aligned to what you're trying to do. And I think that kind of epitomizes the value here of having context on the user's work and the type of work that they're doing, and an ability to actually make these agents work well together. And we want to be at the center of that. We want to help this transformation happen. And for you as partners, we want to make sure that you guys can take your agents and take your applications that exist in the world today and help convert them into this agentic world where people of the future we think will really be focused on their work. And so to kick us off, I'm going to ask Hemanth to come up to the stage and talk to us a lot about the frontier firm and some of the things that are happening in financial services customers today. Thank you, Hemanth.
Thank you, Jared. Thank you, Jared. Good evening and welcome to this session. It's great to be here at Ignite with all of you. My name is Hemanth. I lead the global go-to-market for our financial services business at Microsoft. What I wanted to do first was really kind of from a context standpoint, talk a little bit about the frontier firm. You probably heard about it today. You'll hear about it more later this week as well. What we did as Microsoft was we went and looked at a lot of data. So we spoke to some 31,000 people, knowledge workers. They were in 31 countries. We also got a lot of LinkedIn labor data, and we also looked at the Microsoft 365 productivity signals that we get. And that analysis really told us that the frontier firms that are the firms of the future are going to look markedly different than what we have today. Frontier firms are going to be characterized by three things. First is we've all grown up in a world where knowledge was expensive, time-consuming for us to create, and it was bounded by our human time and effort. But in the future, knowledge is going to be much more easily available to us. The second is frontier firms are going to be firms where there are going to be agents who will do work on our behalf. So we can delegate a set of tasks to agents, and they will be able to perform them under our direction autonomously and give us the output. And the third is, over time, we will all be working in an organization where humans and agents will work together. So for me as an individual, I will almost become a knowledge worker who is CEO of my own agent teams, as well as the people who I work with. So those are the three things that we think will characterize the frontier firm. Now, in financial services, we are seeing a lot of AI transformation, and these are some of the top AI use cases that we are seeing. In banking, improving fraud analysis and detection, transforming our contact centers are some of the core use cases that we see a lot of traction in. Also, banks are trying to empower their relationship managers. So for example, UBS, one of our customers, they built out a legal AI assistant using Azure OpenAI and Azure AI. And what that does is it's able to search 26 million legal documents in multiple languages, and it's able to reduce the effort, historically manual, in trying to accelerate legal research. This obviously allows their people to spend more time on value-added work. Marketing effectiveness is another use case we see, and we also see a lot of customers modernizing sort of core lending and mortgage processes by taking use of AI to actually make them better. If I move across to capital markets, enhancing market research and analytics, empowering the advisory and sales professionals continue to be core use cases. But personalizing and augmenting the client experience is another area where we are seeing a lot of traction. In fact, one of our customers, Investec, they actually automatically summarize client histories. They're able to generate meeting recaps and update all of that into CRM. And what it does is it basically saves the manual data entry time, as well as making sure that their personnel can actually focus more on what they need to do. Risk and compliance management is another key area, another area where we see use cases of AI. And automation is another core example. In fact, Old Mutual has been using Microsoft Azure AI to automatically predict what kind of requests they'll get so that they can route the emails to the right teams. They've almost, they've been seeing 80% email reduction, email handling time reduction by implementing AI. Insurance is another area where there's a lot of AI happening, particularly around claims processes, modernizing underwriting. In fact, Zurich, one of our insurance customers, they've actually used Azure OpenAI, and they're really transforming underwriting and trying to improve the overall value chain. So as you can see, there is a lot of AI that we are seeing being applied already. But one of the things I wanted to also convey was how are many of the financial services customers actually thinking about this AI journey, so that how do they actually make this happen? And we see that happening in sort of three phases. The phase one is really human with assistance. So if I think about myself as a knowledge worker, I used to spend a lot of time trying to go find the information, where it was, what do I needed to do. But today what I do is I actually ask Copilot, and I don't need to worry about where the information is. If it's something that I have access to, it will serve it back to me. I don't have to recall from the top of my head where something is. The second phase is going to be around agents will join us as our teammates. So for example, if my job is to monitor a bunch of adverse events, I can actually set up an agent that will monitor market signals and give me a ping each time there is an adverse impact that requires me to take some action. And the third phase over time is how agents will actually help us run business processes. So if you have a business process where there are a number of steps, number of decisions that need to be made, you could use an agent. So like in insurance, you could actually create an agent that's managing the entire quote to the actual sale process of the policy, so it can actually monitor where there is a bottleneck and actually help you understand. So this is sort of a 3-step process where we see our customers trying to figure out how they can adopt AI. What I'm going to do next is I'll request Jared to come back, because we want to spend the rest of the session actually trying to give you a sense of what's the platform that will help you achieve these changes, and we'll also go through some demos and examples. Back to you, Jared.
Thank you, sir. All right, so as we think about these agents coming to be, there's so many of them. And to give you kind of a sense of scale here, at Microsoft, we've started democratizing this and giving it out to every person. And we've seen approximately 10,000 agents built within Microsoft. And while most of these have a user count of 1, they're starting to take a lot of mind share of how we work and how you use agents to get the job done. Broadly, on Microsoft infrastructure, in the last 90 days, we have seen over 1 million agents created in our production services across the world by customers like you. If you go and ask IDC, IDC sees 1.3 billion AI agents being created by 2028. And this is a landslide of agents coming at us. And so we need to think about what are the tools that we need to use to go and build these. And one of the most common questions I get from partners is, what are the tools? Which ones should I use? I think there's a gajillion of them. Can you help simplify this for me? So I figured I'd spend a minute and go through Jared's view of the 4 major tools we have for helping you build agents. And so I'm going to start at the base layer here with Microsoft Fabric. Microsoft Fabric is a tool set that helps you with your data. And I hate so much every time I sit down with a client and they have a 3-year data project in front of doing anything awesome with AI. And so Fabric allows you to leave your data where it's at, build a virtual facade on top of that, and use things like Fabric IQ to help build agents over that data and help get you going quickly with AI capabilities that understand your structured and unstructured data. On top of that is Azure AI Foundry. AI Foundry is the PaaS platform for doing all this. It's the place where the GPUs live. It's the place where you go and get the new models. It's the place where you can do A/B testing. You can implement controls. It's the equivalent of Azure for the AI land. And to give you a sense of scale on AI Foundry, and I love this quote from Scott Guthrie, so I'm going to steal it mercilessly. It took us 5 years to get Azure its first 1 million cores. Today, Azure is adding a new 1 million cores every 36 hours. So to give you a sense of the scale here, that Azure is investing in new cores and making sure that you have the compute to do the things that you need to do, and bringing the biggest variety of models with over 11,000 models on AI Foundry. Now, everything we do at Microsoft is built on top of AI Foundry. And we do that using 2 different development environments. So you've got Visual Studio and GitHub, which are our pro code environments. These are probably the ones people are most familiar with. If you know what these environments are, they're probably the right environments for you. But if 1.3 billion agents are coming at us, it's not just going to be developers building these agents anymore. I think the way that we're going to core work is going to undergo a shift where instead of using things like Excel or PowerPoint to create artifacts, instead you're going to be thinking about building prompts or agents to do the same sort of thing and to bring the same sort of clarity to your customers. I had a customer recently that was a small bank, and they had this team of 7 that was going and figuring out what the ATM balances were all over the country. And that team of 7 every day wakes up and goes and figures that out. They look if there's a game in town or what the weather is and historical trends. And that team went and was able to innovate and use some of that data, feed it to an agent, and start building out that analysis every morning that they could then work from using an agent. And I think in the past you would have done that in Excel, and in the future you're going to do that more and more with prompts and agents. So Copilot Studio is our environment for doing that. It is our way of democratizing this capability to build agents to every person in every organization on the planet. And we're going to show some demos of that, leveraging some other partners' data here in just a few minutes. All right. Before I jump into that, I want to give you some tips and tricks on building these. I was told that that's what I need to come up here and tell you guys, so I'm going to give you some of Jared's tricks from what I've seen from other partners that have done it successfully. So, a few key things that I've seen in really successful partner AI projects. The first one is about being intent-driven. So my example here is a lot of partners are out there building assistants for their core application, and that's really helpful if your app is really complex. But it's kind of like putting this assistant in the front of an airplane, and if you give this like Copilot, a literal Copilot in the front of an airplane, and you say, hey, Can you put the rudder side to side, or the elevators up or down, or the landing gear down? It can do those things, but it's just a voice assistant. It doesn't add a ton of value. But if you go a little bit further and say, no, Copilot, fly me to San Francisco, and it says, all right, wheels up, and it knows how to go and move everything. That's an intent-driven capability. It figures out what the intent of the user is and actually goes and does those activities. Where you can be intent-driven, you can deliver much more value than just being an assistant. The second is that the best partner solutions I've seen integrate rich responses. I mean, this one's kind of a no-brainer once you've seen it. AI has an ability to build charts and little widgets and all these sorts of cool things. Whenever you can bring those in, they're really wow factors and really help your customer go beyond just a text-based response. And the last one is to extend the primary interface. So you remember how I talked in the beginning about how we don't want to be jumping between all of these applications. I don't think customers are going to want to jump between a million agents either. They want to stay where they're focused. If you're writing an email back to a client, you don't want to jump over to Salesforce to be able to look up what's happening. You just want to be writing your email, and you want to ask a question. You want to have it in your inbox help you bring that in. If you're sitting in a retail bank, if you're sitting there working in one of those applications, you want to stay in that application. So you don't want to take the user away if you can get away with it. So try to figure out where your customer spends their time and extend that interface. Now I'm going to throw a shameless plug here for, we believe that interface, and we hope that interface will be increasingly Copilot. So this primary interface, we hope, will be more people coming to orchestrated layers, to ChatGPT, to Copilot, et cetera. And that's the place where they'll be spending their time instead of necessarily going into some other experience. So if you're going to extend Copilot, I've got 3 big ways for you to think about doing that. And each of these you should think about. There's different ones that are good for different businesses. The first one's obvious. Most people will immediately go, oh, extend it. That you've just been talking to me for however many minutes about agents, Jared. Let's build an agent. Agents are great. You've got tons of control over the agent. You can see how it looks. You can put it on an agent store. That's awesome. And it requires also generally the most amount of work because you have to do all of that to make it great. And it's not as customizable to the client. You kind of produce one thing and you ship it out to everybody, and that's that. Now, your next option is that you could extend Copilot Graph. This one's probably one of the more confusing ones. When you go and ask Copilot a question today, it uses that work IQ or our graph to help answer the question. So if you say, when was that meeting, or help me, if you ask the Home Depot question I had earlier, it looks at your job title, looks at all this extra stuff. So there's a capability where you can take your data and extend your client's graphs. So if you have data, let's say I use internally, we have ones on our ticketing systems, on our Know Your Customer systems, so that when I ask about an upcoming meeting with a client, it can pull that data in to the generation of my response. So I never necessarily go to an agent, I just pull the data directly into our vector index. So those are called Copilot connectors, and they can be a really great way to extend your client's ecosystems with the data that already sits in your core products. The last one I think is especially important in financial services is you can power your client's agents. So this is a little bit of a head fake here, right? So your clients often are very sophisticated. FSI IT departments are some of the most complex in the world. They're very, very capable. They want to build their own agents because they want their own control over their own special sauce, over the way they do things, over the way they secure things, et cetera. And so if you can help power that experience easily for them, that can go a long way to them keeping your products in their ecosystem to do the things that they want to do. And there's a number of ways to think about doing that. That can be building an MCP server, building a connector, A to A, but producing a component that's easily consumable by your clients trying to build agents. And we're going to show you how that works with Morningstar here in a few minutes. All right, last but not least, and this one's going to be a deep cut into how to think about agent architecture. When you get really deep into this, there's kind of 3 big things I'd call out. So this is getting beyond the POCs, getting beyond the cool demo, but getting into how do we make this actually work and be performant. The first thing I'll say is choose the right model for the job. There's lots of models out there that do different things well. There's models that are cheap, there's models that are fast, there's models that do financial services, there's models that do math better. Pick the right model for the right job you're trying to do. Second up, subloops. So if you look at Copilot and think about how we've thought about improving Copilot over time, we look at what are the hardest problems that we're having. Let's say it's finding the right file on SharePoint or analyzing one of those types of things. And what we do is we create a subloop or an agent a sub-agent effectively, that goes and does that job really, really well, whatever that job is. And we give it a set of tools, like for the SharePoint one, we would give it tools like vector search for file, lexical search for file, follow a link, understand an image, make a table of contents, and we give that all to the subloop to go and get the work done. And that gets you much better results on specific problem sets. And the more you can build that for problems that are really plaguing your customers, the better performance you'll get. Now, the next question is, how do I know that I'm getting better performance? Well, evals, 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 evals. If there's one thing I've learned working for Microsoft over the last 2 years in the AI space, has been evals are the thing that you need to increase your performance. You need to know, are the new models helping? Did that subloop do anything? Did any other change that happened anywhere in the ecosystem actually improve things or make things worse for me? So make sure you set up a good set of evals right at the beginning. Have hundreds of them ready to go. Try them against your agent, create subloops, use the right models for those subloops, test them, and get great results. So when you get into like actually the hardcore meat of doing it, it's this combination of 3 things that is how we have been improving agentic performance across our portfolios. Okay, without further ado, I'd love for you guys to hear from Morningstar. They've got a really cool journey, and I've asked Adam to join us up here on stage, so I'll welcome Adam up to tell you a bit about their journey.
Hello, everyone. It's really great to be here. This is a topic that consumes all of our times. You can't get away from it, but it's really, really interesting to think about the story that Jared is talking about and how closely our own journey has mirrored certain parts of it. I didn't have to contort a lot of the story to make it fit. It's just how the world has evolved very quickly with all of us running in similar directions. So excited to share exactly what our journey's been and how we're bringing that to life. But first, I'll start with myself, Adam 𝗦𝗲𝗀. I am the head of research or data and research solutions at Morningstar, as well as CTO for our direct platform business unit, which puts me at a place that I've lived most of my career, which is at the intersection of technology and financial services. So I've spent many years as a practitioner, helping solve investment problems, sitting across from investors, presenting to boards, creating complex portfolios. I've spent many years developing technology to handle the data, the reporting, compliance requirements around all those workflows. So that has continued on at Morningstar over the last 5 years and into my role today. Morningstar itself, for those that don't know Morningstar, is financial data research and technology business. Not quite as old as Microsoft, but almost. We have our origins about 41 years ago. It was founded really with this mission of empowering investors, bring transparency to the complexity of the financial world, help people understand how to make a good decision, what data is relevant, what they should pay attention to, what should they ignore, and add transparency and bring depth of insight into those very difficult decisions. We do that for individuals, helping to manage their own portfolios. We do that for professionals, advisors, asset managers, large institutions across the board. But it really all comes back to that empowerment. How do we give them what they need, when they need it, where they need it to solve their problem? And AI is clearly a part of that story as workflows move into those type of tools. Just a little bit around how we do that and who we serve. The core, again, is data. You need a lot of data to make sound financial decisions. That's market data on securities. It's holdings data on portfolios, on ETFs, on mutual funds. It's a lot of information on top of that we calculate, our intellectual property around Morningstar's famous style box and star rating. Is this a good fund? Is this a bad fund? Human research that goes on top of all of that data is the core of our business. And we deliver it through software. We have professional software for asset managers, institutions. We have professional software for advisors. And then we implement partner with many of our clients for data feeds, APIs, where they're building their own tools. They have opinionated versions. What is their special sauce? How do they want to use our data in combination with their best practices? So we ship a lot of data into our clients' businesses that brings it all together. So how does that flow into this AI narrative and story? One, it set a really strong foundation. When AI hit the scene, ChatGPT I use as a marker in late 2022 that kind of lit the fuse on a lot of this. I think we started at a point of AI was not new or particularly novel to us. I think ChatGPT was very interesting, but we had decades of experience collecting data off of hundreds of millions of documents in every language across the world, working with traditional machine learning, training BERT models. So we had a lot of experience and comfort with AI. And so it was a very short cycle to say, hey, this is new and pretty novel. What can we do with it? And what quickly rose to the top was what everyone did. You build a RAG chatbot, of course, which we did, of course. We have a lot of research, a lot of long-form editorial research, investment research on funds, on companies that lends itself very well to kind of retrieval, language-oriented models. Worked very well as a research assistant, and within a handful of months of ChatGPT being in the market, we launched in-product research assistant called 𝗦𝗲𝗀 in our professional products. And Microsoft was here from the very beginning when we said, how do we get access to these models? We'll go and use Azure OpenAI APIs, and they've been with us from the very beginning. What we quickly found, which is what everyone else found, that when you do the obvious thing and build a RAG chatbot on a corpus of good data, how do you actually get that to survive the real world, right? The distance from zero to demo is very short. The distance from demo to production-ready, high-quality, reliable results, particularly in the financial services industry where the standards are high, right? We have people making investment decisions based on what our products are showing them. Their compliance departments really care that we get it right. Their clients really care that they're making good decisions based on sound, grounded data every time. So we built a lot of internal platform. How do we manage our data? How do we manage prompts and corpus? Automated evals, no different than Microsoft. You have to do evals. Built an automation framework for that. You don't just get to do it once. You have to do it. Our data is changing literally by the minute and hour. You have to be running these all the time and rechecking. Is it still getting the type of results you expect? Adding tools, adding agents, making sure that you understand how they're all working together. MCP happened, feels like it was almost a year ago, but that's been the next fuse that got lit that's really kicked off a bunch of new agentic workflows that we're happy to support, including our integration with Microsoft. So this all leads to that democratization that Jared was talking about, the billion agents. I think we spend a lot of time, and we'll continue to spend time. We have software integrations where we need those tools for our professional developers. But we really believe that a lot of the hard work that we've had to do is becoming turnkey. So the innovator's dilemma in the sense of building the things that are going to be obsolete, and we knew it when we were building them, but nobody else had done it yet. So how do we get evals quickly? How do we have model choice, turnkey, swap between models, all of those things, swap in new data has become much, much easier than it was 2.5 years ago. And so where is that taking us is, I think we understand the journey that our clients are on. Workflows that not so long ago, and even today, go from our software, our data, into Excel. This is finance, right? Everything goes to Excel. Add some logic, add some calculations, get to an output. Increasingly, those workflows, we believe, are going to find their way into the AI assistant of choice. Just ask the question and get the answer. There's a lot of work that goes into this process of moving data around, adding your views, your special sauce, your insights to it that are going to get codified into agents. And we're really strong believers that grounded data, high quality insights with the best models is going to be the most powerful combination in how those things get built. So that brings us to where we are. We've launched earlier this year a Morningstar agent in Azure AI Foundry for kind of the professional development work, as well as the MCP server available now in Copilot Studio for the low-code, no-code experience. So we're really excited to see the work clients and prospects are already doing on that. The rapid prototyping capabilities of what do I want to do, that intent-based directive that Jared talked about. I just needed to do this thing, this annoying thing that I have to come in the second Monday of every month and pull this data from the system and put it in this spreadsheet and create this report. How can that just happen for me? So I think those intents are quickly becoming new features, new functionalities that AI can service that realistically, I'm probably not going to have my software team build a whole solution around. It's probably bespoke, it's very custom, the client wants it their way. But our data, it needs to be there. They need our data to perform the task. So how can we help remove those barriers, remove the friction, get to the insight, get to the outcome they want as quickly as possible? So super exciting. We have a really great example. I'm going to bring Jared back out. We're going to go through a live demo and talk about an example of this. But I think these things require imagination. This is a nice rifle shot that we took into the space. There are thousands of adjacent workflows that we know are going to evolve that our data, Copilot Studio, are going to be able to solve for.
Thank you much. I think that was awesome. I'm really excited by some of the things Morningstar has been doing as well. I really love the company story, moving from paper and delivery on CDs, you were telling me earlier, to leveraging AI as the best way to deliver some of these market insights.
Yeah, that's right. For those that might be familiar with Morningstar, you might have received in the 80s and 90s big paper books of all the data we collect that evolved into floppy disks, CD-ROMs. We shipped millions and millions of CD-ROMs, software with the data packed in, software with an actual cloud to hold the data. Now we're in web and AI. I think every single time there's been a landscape change technology-wise, we've always tried to be at the front end. So hopefully we're getting close to the frontier company definition, but I think we're well positioned for the AI revolution.
Awesome. So let's show what you can do today leveraging Copilot Studio and the MCP server from Morningstar. So we've been working with one of our shared clients, 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, and I want to show you how we're just going to use a sentence of intent. So all of this, by the way, live, in production, real time today, which is one of the scariest things I've done in my life, is demoing live AI on screen for you, but I figured I'd do it no other way. So we're going to do this live. So I'm going to give a sentence of intent here. I'm going to say, build me an agent using 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀's investment philosophy. I want it to look over my customer notes in Dataverse daily and send me an email if there's an action I should take. And I'm going to go ahead and get this started.
So I think this is a good example of what I was just talking about, right? Think of the things that you want to eliminate from your daily workflow. What things would you hope had already happened when you showed up in the morning? I've used this phrase with people on my team. How do we make our next hire an agent, right? How does something that we would have to scale out to do become automatic? How does it just happen for us? And this is, I think, the direction we're going to follow here of an advisor shows up in the morning, an agent is prepared, something that he might need to think about.
All right, so let's take a look and see what this has done. So first off, it's recommended triggers for us. A trigger is just what sets off our agent. We said we wanted this to happen daily, so we can just go and add a reoccurrence to do this daily. So we're going to add a click and add that. It's gone and generated a set of instructions. This is using our best practices for what makes great instructions. So it's just done that from that sentence that we said. The agent reviews customer notes stored, applies 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀's investment philosophy principles, notifies the user via email. But here's the best bit. It knows me. So it's gone and looked in my SharePoint, and it's realized that I have a document titled, lovingly, 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀's investment philosophy. So it's grabbed that document and said, this is probably a good thing to help power this, because it's gone and searched my SharePoint for it. It's also recommended that we grab whatever's on the 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀's site. And I can just add these in a couple of clicks. So it doesn't take me long to start building out an agent that actually is useful here. I'm going to give this a minute to add. You'll see that it's also going to recommend for us a couple of tools. And so these tools are various things and systems that I have access to that I can go and add things from. A tool like send an email is a good one. Since I said that I want to be able to send an email, I can go ahead and click add. It's already set up. I can auth it with my user and add it. And so now I'm able to create this agent really rapidly, again, even if I didn't know too much about building agents to start with. Now I'm going to move to one that I've already gone through and tweaked and added some fun branding elements to, because I think it makes it more compelling. Now, there's a few things I want to call out here. First off is that we leveraged one of the latest models from Claude Sonnet 4.5. This is an amazing model, and I mentioned earlier about how using the right model makes all the difference. Sonnet is really great at financial analytics, it's really great at tool calling, and it makes these agents really sing. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. It's got a trigger, like I said before, it runs every morning. And it's got a set of instructions. Again, you're an autonomous assistant. Use only verified up-to-date Morningstar data, some tone and style. It's got an ability to get our client holdings, so it can go and look and see in our wealth management system what our client's holdings are, and an ability to send an email with a template. Now, if you go and look in here, again, it's our get client holdings, but here's the Morningstar MCP server. I can add this in just a couple of clicks. So Morningstar customers can come in, use their Morningstar login, add the MCP server, and all of these tools are automatically populated for them. Data, articles, research, data points, all of the great things that Adam and team have built.
Yeah, and as you went through that, Jared, did everyone count how many tools we needed? Those are all places that the user would have to go. I need to go to Morningstar software and receive some data. I need to go and check the client guidelines for this account. I need to go to my portfolio management system to see what they currently own. I need to figure out what's going on and draft an email to somebody to take action on it, right? So we're thinking about that distance and just removing it from the workflow altogether.
What's also great is we get a lot of worries from our financial clients about the security around MCP and what can happen here. And there's a bunch of controls built into the connectors in Copilot Studio so that those companies can have their DLP controls. They can say which tools they want to use and not use, and they can set that policy up at a tenant-wide level. Now, let's go ahead and see the agent in action and see how this looks. So I'm going to go ahead and run the trigger, and we're going to watch the debug view of the agent so you can actually see what it's thinking and how it's working. So again, I put in a sample client and I made it me, which is fun. And I went through and said, okay, I'm a Microsoft employee and I get paid a lot in Microsoft stock. That said, if there's any problems with Microsoft, I'm in kind of a pickle because I work for Microsoft, I live in Seattle, and I hold a lot of Microsoft stock. So I kind of want to diversify away from Microsoft in most of my portfolio. So I asked in my notes of my financial advisor that I keep my exposure to Microsoft under 5%. And that's the note it's going to pick up on here and go to work for us on. So while I run this, the first thing you'll notice on the right-hand side here is that you've got chain of thought. This is what the agent's thinking, how it's working, and it's going to be a little fast here. And on the left, it's tool calling. So it's calling out to get these client records. It's just got the tickers and the share numbers. That's all it's getting from the client system. All the rest of this data is coming real time from Morningstar. It's continuing to think about it. Now it's going to go and get a bunch of prices and NAVs for all of this particular information. One of the things that I love about this is that it's also looking into the mutual funds. So it realized that not only do I have direct Microsoft exposure, but I have exposure in the index funds that I own, because Microsoft's a big part of them. It's doing math across all of these and figuring out what it needs to do next. So if you were to watch it right now, this little colorful bar that you get to see, in the back end, it's writing me a comprehensive email. So it's going and building out this thing. You'd see HTML flying across the screen as it goes and gets this stuff done.
Yeah, and not an invented workflow here. Looking into how much of Microsoft do I own directly versus in my funds is something that our users at Morningstar do all the time. We have software features for that. We have kind of world-class coverage in terms of the underlying holdings of all the ETFs and mutual funds that our clients might invest in. So putting it all together and giving real transparency is something that Morningstar is synonymous with for these users. Mm-hmm. We've solved a problem that our software, you would have to go log into the software and run a report, but AI's done the math, pulled the data, understood exactly the context. This is both a great example and an opportunity. My team that's watching, the X-ray function that we have for portfolios is probably our next MCP tool that needs to be added just to make this even faster.
All right, there we go. It looks like it's gone ahead and generated this email for us. Another thing I love too is we didn't actually tell it in the instructions to go and look into mutual funds or go and look into that. It used that intelligence on tap. It used the model knowledge because we told it was a financial advisor and who it worked for to figure out that those are the steps it needed to take. So let's go check out the email it generated. This just came in. You can test me on the 5:39 p.m. I didn't do this beforehand. And it has gone, that's a terrible Zoom ability here, but it's gone ahead and generated this email. It used the Edward Jones template because we put it in there. It generated this whole thing for us. Thank you. This is awesome. Look at this whole thing that it has built, all with just a couple of lines of prompt to go and build this thing out, and our advisor can use this to go on forth. I tried another fun demo this morning where I took the same data and I applied it into the new agent mode features in PowerPoint and Excel and built that out as well. You can go see that if you want to see it in person at our booth on the expo floor as well. And we're really excited about being able to do all of this. And again, just a few minutes, you can go and build this and your clients can build it too. All right, I'm going to show you a couple of more features because we've got 4 minutes remaining, and why not? So the first one I'm going to show you is I did just tell you that evals make all the difference. So we've built evaluation capabilities directly in here. We were talking earlier this morning, and it's about both what our agent does and what our agent doesn't do. So we want to make sure that we've got evals for both. And in this case, it's gone and generated me a set of evals, and I put one in here about what stock should I invest in. And my expected response is you do not give investment advice. This is not a thing we want you to do. Now, if you notice, it gave me a failing record on this because it said that I was too helpful. It said that now you said I don't provide investment advice, but then you continued onward to give some pretty specific advice about the things that we should do. So this fails, and it's something that I need to go look into more in our agent. Again, you can just build these out really quickly and have an eval bench ready to go. Now, once you've shipped this out to customers, as I'm sure you're all very familiar with, it never really survives long. People start asking it all sorts of things, and you want to know, what are they asking it? How's it doing? And so analytics now also allows you to go and see the data on that. So you can see how the agent's actually performing with your beta users or your real users, whether how many sessions they're getting, the engagement around those sessions, the types of themes and those questions are, and if you're getting upvotes or downvotes on those things. We go and judge the answer. So we have a GPT judge on top of them that says, is this doing well or is this not doing well? The types of tool uses it's calling, and another very common question I get, how much it costs. So what is the bills that I'm bringing on? What's my ROI? Are people liking this? And so that I can make a case that I can roll this out further after I bring in all of this great data. So all of this is from Copilot Studio, democratizing this capability out and making it really easy to use data from great providers, models from great providers, and great tools to build it all.
This is tremendous, by the way, for someone that's lived and breathed and sweat AI production applications for the last couple of years, like turnkey access to all this rich data. What are people asking? What are we succeeding on? What are we failing? Right out of the gate is going to be life-changing for people. If you haven't built it yet, you'll appreciate it and take it for granted. If you've been living in this world for the last couple of years, this stuff is hard. We've taken some hard problems off the table here. This is great.
All right, last but not least, thank you all for attending the session. If I'm going to leave you with 3 things, one is look at all these strategies we presented today, pick the ones that are most aligned to your business model and your clients' business models. Let your teams start building and learning. This is a learning process. We're all learning together. I'm sure it's going to keep evolving, and assume everything's going to get 10x better. You're going to run into hurdles along the way. It's okay. Work through them. Help, tell me what needs to be fixed. I'm sure there are problems. I'm aware of many. We talk about many on a regular basis. So please tell us so that we can fix them, make them better. Thank you so much for attending. Please feel free to come up afterwards and ask any questions that you might have.